Constitution in my court. I mean, it's not never happened to me, but I know they don't use the Constitution in the court. So, this is about getting the Constitution not only into your lives, but into the court. Okay, you always have to go over the core organic documents of the United States of America, and they are. This is audience participation.
Declaration of Independence?
Declaration of Independence.
Bill of Rights.
Northwest Ordinance.
That's the third. Second is the compact between the
Articles of
colonies.
Confederation.
So that's it. Articles of Confederation. And
That pesky Constitution.
Bill of Rights.
well, that's onto there. That's amendment to this, which is the Constitution of the United States of America. Those are our four organic founding documents, the law of the land in all states. Even in Texas, as you can see here, this is the first page of the Texas Constitution. And it says that freedom and sovereignty of state. Texas is a free and independent state subject only to the Constitution of the United States, that would be of America, and the maintenance of our free institutions and the perpetuity of the Union depend upon the preservation of the right of local self-government unimpaired to all the states. So the local self-government comes from the Constitution of the United States. They can't just make it up as they go along. Okay. So even in Texas, we can implement, especially in Texas, or especially in any one of the 50 states, we can implement the Constitution into everything we do, and that's what we have to do. Now, somebody tell me how I get to the next page. What do you think, guys?
There should be an arrow pointing to the right.
Which one?
Maybe up there towards the left, upper left-hand corner.
Okay.
Oh, just scroll down.
All right, I'll just scroll down. I'll just do this the hard way. Okay, this is the Declaration of Independence. This is where we get our unalienable rights. It was passed on July 4th, 1776, and it says that when in the course of human events, we all know that, okay? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So, who sets up the government?
The people.
The people. And they have to act in our interest. In other words, their only job is to protect us and our property. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, such form. Prudence, indeed, will dictate the governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. Do we have any kind of government like that today?
Yeah, right.
That would be a no? So is this on the screen? Okay, so that's it's time for us to reform the government. And since the Constitution had gone totally out of the laws that are implemented upon us in this country, we need to push them back and get back only to the Constitution and our rights under it. And that includes those other three documents. This is the first page of the Constitution of the United States of America, 1789, September 17, 1789. That we, that's us. And again, as we learned last time, the word people it took on a new definition when the founding fathers did the Declaration of Independence. And so people before that meant lords, ladies, blah, 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 blah. It meant royalty. And when the founding fathers decided that we would be the people, we're not citizens, we're not inhabitants, we're people on this land. And the laws are our laws, and they are for us. And so they defined the people as us, the people that stand on this land, okay? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, we would be the posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. Now, as we know, the Constitution doesn't deal with us. It doesn't deal with the people. It is what the government that we have established among men has to do. It has to abide and uphold and support this Constitution. So, and scroll down, she said. Is this the place? Oh, there we go. Over here we come to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Clause 10. One of the power, and this whole article is the Congress shall have power to, these are the things the Congress has the power to do. To borrow money, blah, 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 blah. To define and publish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. So the law of nations is really important in our foundational document, the Constitution. So we not only have the Constitution to protect to keep those people in their place, but we have the law of nations that they have to live by. And these are piracy and offenses against the law of nation are two of the crimes listed in the Constitution that can be punished criminally. The United States is bound to punish offenses against the United Nations, law of nations, and that thing about piracies and felonies.
Now, could you define the law of nations a little bit?
Well, and before I discovered the covenant, my law of nations guide has always been Vattel's. Vattel was the author of the law of nations, and that's the one that I have always used as a foundation.
Did you say Nuttels?
Vattel, V-A-T-T-E-L.
V-A-T-T-E-L-S.
Okay.
Vattel, it's available online. Vattel's law of nations,
And when did that arise?
1600,
1752.
thank you.
Okay.
1752, we have our historical expert here, because I ain't it. So it's important we understand how important the law of nations is to us when dealing with the Constitution. It gives us another cog, as well, another wheel, a leg, another back to hit it with, and that is really important. The Constitution of the United States at Article 3, what does Article 3 deal with? Article 1 is legislature, Article 2 is executive, Article 3 is judiciary. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made. So the treaties become law of nations as well, because the United States has signed on to certain treaties or covenants. We're going to explore a covenant today. Covenants, and those become treaties, and they are the law of the land. And they can be used just the same as the Constitution and the four organic documents. These treaties can be used to implement anything that we want to do to uphold the law. Okay? So it's important. It's time we started using these. So to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and councils, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grant of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign state citizens or subjects. So surely to goodness we're covered in there someplace.
Okay, just real quickly, when we open the can of worms of maritime, basically, they're trying to always wheel us into maritime, is that correct? Or?
No.
Not at all.
Okay, they wanted equity.
We don't have courts of equity. Those are chancery courts. We don't have those. We have statutory commercial
We have
courts.
bondage courts.
But I thought statutory was maritime.
No. Maritime is allowed to see. It's specific, and if you ever read maritime law, it's really simple stuff. The maritime law reads just like common law. It's very, very simple.
Right.
You don't have long,
It's not
trespass and
accusative
offense.
law.
Yeah, it's not accusative law. What we have basically is Roman civil law, accusative law. Craig
but-
maybe will talk
I
about that.
thought the word statute was maritime.
No. Statutory is some code that's made by man. The law of the sea is as old as the sea.
Okay.
It's like common law, but it's on the sea. Article 4, 6, if I could read Roman numerals, VI is 6, not 4. This is the 4th article of the Constitution of the United States of America. We'll go to paragraph 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and that includes treaties. And all treaties made, I spoke too soon, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. What does that paragraph say?
That the laws are subservient to the treaties?
And the Constitution. But this is called the Supremacy Clause. If we're going to claim our rights under treaty or this convention, this covenant, then we're going to have to use this article to introduce it into any court we go into. This is a really, really important article because when we invoke our claim under the covenant and adopt it into the Constitution, we do it under Article 6 of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause. And now we bring it in as though it was written law right in front of them. And all courts have to understand and recognize that. And here's the second thing. That's
So when it says notwithstanding, that means that they can't say, well, the law's different here, because that law's notwithstanding.
no good, no bueno. And the third clause here is extremely important. Clause. Paragraph. The senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executives and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as qualification in the office or public. You don't have to swear to God, you just take your oath. Or public trust under the United States. So this Constitution, Article 6, is extremely important because it not only it's the Supremacy Clause where you can bring international law into the court or the law of nations, well, and the treaties thereby. And it says that every public official has to have an oath to support the Constitution. It was so important to the founding fathers to make these people take an oath to support the Constitution that they put it in the Constitution at Article 6. Every swinging dick out there better have one out there that claims to be a public officer, appointed or elected, has to have a constitutional oath, Article 6. I've never found one.
And then also they had the very first law written, wasn't it, by the first Congress was the
Oh, you would mean this.
no way.
Yeah, you would mean this.
Yeah.
Here we have. I don't know how to do a PowerPoint, but I can put documents together. So, the laws of the United States. This is one stat 23. It's on page 23. Let's see if we can find it. You see this one where it says 24 over here? That's the second page, which is 24. And this doesn't have 23 on it, but this is one stat 23. Before, the 22 pages preceding this particular first statute that they put on the books are indexes in the statute at large books. And then what stat means, statutes at large, any law that Congress puts on the books is listed in the statutes at large. So every Congress has their own statute at large. This is the first Congress. Therefore, it's one stat, and it begins on page 23. That's how you use the references. It's really important to be able to understand and use law sites. So this is always called one stat 23. Passed at the first Congress which was begun and held at the City of New York on September 29, 1789. It says, the very first thing, section 1 there, see? Be it enacted, well, excuse me, tricky one, that, how do I make this bigger? Let's just
You
make
see
it,
the plus sign up there on the toolbar?
okay?
Maybe.
Probably. Yeah, keep going.
More?
Yeah, more.
Hey, we can read it from
I'm
here.
almost gonna read it now.
You want more?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
The other thing, is it possible to expand that? Zach, can you make you can probably pull it back a little and make it
I
front.
don't know that you can get it, oh, maybe if you.
Oh, you can't
Yeah.
because of the wire.
You can bring the
Sorry,
screen
guys, you're just
closer.
gonna have to-
No, you want the screen further back. Would make it larger.
You lost your toolbar with the plus sign?
Yeah,
You can probably also just do command plus.
really? Golly, command plus?
I don't know, I have a,
Control.
This is big
Or
enough, you
control
guys can
plus.
see it.
yeah, I can
Okay.
see it, but I'm in the front.
Be enacted, this is an act to regulate time and manner of administering certain oaths. So there is both time and a manner, all right? The oath or affirmation required by the 6th article, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled once upon a time before Reconstruction. That's how all the statutes read. Be it enacted by. First they said what the act was, and this is an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths. And then it always had the enactment clause preceding it. It hasn't said that for 100 years. So it's not really law. Those are the statutes. Okay? Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the following, to wit, in other words, exactly as this is written, except you substitute your name instead of A.B. I, A.B., do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be, that I will support the Constitution of the United States. How hard is that? And it is support. It's not uphold, it's not defend, it is support. And that's what it has to say. So they first put it in the Constitution, and then they put it in the statutes at large to say the manner, that regulate the time and manner. The manner is, I will support. The said oath or affirmation shall be administered, within 3 days after the passing of this act, or by one member of the Senate to the President of the United States, and by him to all members to the Secretary. They said how to even begin the oath, how to pass it on. And by all members of the Secretary, Speaker of the House, and to all members who have not, this is for the Congress, and to the clerk, in case of the absence of any member from the service of either House, at the time prescribed for taking the said oath or affirmation, the same shall be administered to such member when he shall appear to take his seat. In other words, before he assumes the duty of his office, when he shall appear to take his seat. No elected or appointed official in this land can assume the duties of the office without this oath. Be it further enacted that at the first session of Congress, after every general election of representatives, the oath or affirmation aforesaid shall be administered by any one member of the House. These are still that's still dealing with the legislature. Be it further enacted, here we go for the states, that the members of the several state legislatures at the next sessions of said legislatures, respectively, and to all executive and judicial officers of the several states, elected and judicial officers, who have been heretofore chosen or appointed, or who shall be chosen or appointed before the first day of August next, and who shall then be in office, shall, within 1 month, you got 3 days, thereafter take the same oath or affirmation except where they shall have taken it before, which may be administered by any person authorized by the law of the state in which such oath shall be holden to administer oaths. And the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers of the several states who shall be chosen or appointed after the first day of August shall, before they proceed to execute the duties of their respective offices, take the foregoing oath or affirmation, which shall be administered by the person or persons who by the law of the state shall be authorized to administer the oath of office. And the person or persons so administering the oath, hereby required to be taken, shall cause a record or certificate thereof to be made. In the same manner as by the law of the state, he or they shall be directed to record or certify the oath of office. What did that say? What do they have to do?
They have to be sworn in before they can screw us over.
And then what do they have to do?
They have to file a record of that.
It has to be on record.
And they have to follow the exact same,
I will
Text.
support.
right. And now, hasn't, recently they've been dancing around, we keep changing it. When Obama's oath real different.
Well, the presidential oath, the president takes two oaths. One to the president, to be the president of the United States of America, and one to be the president of the United States. And the one you see him take openly is the commander-in-chief oath, the president of the United States. I've never found, once I saw a senator's oath, but I don't have a copy of it. Nobody in Congress takes the oath. Nobody in the Supreme Court takes the oath. Nobody in the state takes the oath.
And
So-
you would think with technology being where it's at, we could just click online and see their oath somewhere, right?
Well, you can. You can click online and see, well,
Who has taken
Where
the
their
oath,
oath
who has
is
not?
missing.
it depends on where they have to record their oath. Anybody above county in Texas has to record, like district courts or government officials have to record their oath with the Secretary of State. They don't have this oath. Anybody below district level, counties and below, record it with the county clerk. And you can click online and find the oaths that they take. But there, also the Texas Association of Counties puts a bulletin. All you have to do is put Texas oath and bonds, and that comes up what the requirements that they have to have. They do every year, every 2 years, the Texas Association of Counties makes a pamphlet, a book, of what each county official has to have in the way of oaths. And never once does it say Article 6 oath of the Constitution. But you know that because it's in the Constitution. So that's in addition to what the county tells you they have to have. And they generally have to have a statement, Article 16, Section 1, Texas Constitution statement. They have to file that first. I didn't bribe anybody. Nobody bribed me to take this job. We used to call it the anti-bribery statement. It's just called a statement now. And that has to be filed prior to the oath, this Article 16, Section 1 oath, which says they'll support, they'll hold the defend. But it does not have any word, and it's what they'll say, if I question about it, they say, well, that's inherent, that's in the Article 16 oath. It's not. And then they have to have a bond, which on the front says the bond, and on the back says their oath of office, and both of those have to be filled in, and the oath of office never is.
And this document is Article 16, Section 6.
No, it reflects back to Article 6 of the Constitution,
Okay.
the constitutional oath that you will never find anywhere. And it has to be recorded somewhere, and it's not.
So then how do we hold them accountable for that? Like, is that not a public record that we're able to go and see who has done it and who has not? Yes?
Ray, how long have we been fighting this issue?
15, almost 20 years.
Yeah,
Shut up.
and again, we all looked at it. It's amazing. Like, the vast majority most of them don't even sign it or anything.
It's not only that they don't fill it out, it's they don't care that they don't fill it out. Not only that, we pay a person $100,000 a year to make sure they fill out all their forms.
And
So-
they have been held accountable.
And because of that, the bond is they're never bonded. Is that right?
You
But
go
they're
out
never
and start
bonded to the
telling
people
them.
anyway. When this nation started, when somebody wanted to hold office, they had to put up their freehold as the bond.
Right.
And the bigger the job, the bigger the freehold they had to own. That means they own their property in fee simple. It was theirs, and it could be taken from them for malfeasance of office. That was their bond. Then it went to commercial bonds, but the bonds we have now aren't made out to the people. I've tried to
Yeah.
And why is that?
cabbage on bonds. I tried to get bonds, and I don't have the standing to collect on a bond. I'm not the governor or the
Now, when did this
commissioner.
go down when they switched to the commercial bonds? Was that after Civil War?
Yeah,
Reconstruction.
Reconstruction.
What was your point, Craig?
that was my point.
Oh, that was your point?
So we don't have the authority to,
Wait just a minute, who are you?
oh, we do have the authority, right? Okay, no standing, what did you say exactly? No standing to
I thought
enforce?
you were a people.
I am people.
All right. Did you institute governments among men? And did the Declaration of Independence say when they don't toe the line to throw them out? And reform your government? We haven't been able to hold to the Constitution till now. That's why I'm really excited about this covenant. Because we didn't have any way to hold them accountable. But now we can. Okay, but first we have to understand what they have to be held accountable for. And they don't have enough for bond made out to us, the people. They have nothing to indemnify us against any malfeasance. All they have is, in Texas, they're either made out to the county judge, the county, or the governor or the comptroller, depending on the level of government. And that's if they mismanage funds.
But and they're kind of a catch-22. They're not doing an oath nor a bond.
Who are these people?
Who are? Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're trying to say you're trying to hold them to it, but what's going to lock them into it? They're already just acting as a.
Who put them in office?
We the people.
And who's going to take them out?
We the people.
We have to make a concerted effort to do something about it.
Okay.
We have to, what?
Psychology will take them out. The same thing that keeps them in office will take them out of office. And it's psychology that keeps them in office, and that's the psychology of fear. Now, once you understand the psychology of fear and how it's used, then you can stop being scared and confront the fear. And once you confront a bully, away they go.
They get away with this stuff because the people are afraid, whoever they are.
Or lacking in the knowledge.
Right, the people are ignorant, and people are afraid because they're ignorant.
Well, they also ramp up the punishment or whatever you want to call it for challenging them.
Well, you know, I don't
Well,
think
that's
anyone can cash a salary check.
Part of the
And they damn sure can't get pensions. But they do every day.
Yeah.
They
It's
sure
a
do.
felony.
But the reason that they do that,
Oh.
Dave, is because people are ignorant, and so they're able to bully them and threaten them with threats that they really have no standing.
Oh,
You know.
I
So
totally
what-
agree.
Or it
So
could
how would
include
you do this?
indoctrination.
Right.
So how we can do this is to understand the basic tenets and laws of the land. And when we have those, and we have a grasp of them, which is what we're doing today, then we can boot them. Because, you know, why mobs aren't down there hollering, show me your oath, I don't know. I guess they like to pay property taxes. I guess they like to be thrown in jail. I guess they like to pay income taxes. I guess they like it. How was the latest Supreme Court judge picked and ratified? Who picked him?
The president.
The president. How did he get in?
Well, he was appointed really, but then they got to question him and badger him and all of that.
Because the Senate has to tear it apart to see if it will work. That's called the advise and consent. The president can't solely do things like this. He has to have the advise and consent. It's in the Constitution, it's in the clause. He has to have the advise and consent of the Senate. Because the Senate doesn't work for the people. The Senate used to represent states. So the states are voting with the country, with the United States to ratify treaties. It doesn't go to the House of Representatives because they make laws. The Senate, the advice and the consent of the Senate, watch it there. You're picking up my habits. The advice and consent of the Senate is the thing that passes any proposal by the president. So this is the advice and consent that the Senate has given to this international covenant, and that makes it a treaty that the United States has signed on to. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So it's a treaty, but it's also a covenant that we've entered into.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we use it as a treaty when we use the law. Do you remember back here when we were doing the Article 6 thing about where the law applies?
Yeah.
Applies to treaties. It's
Yeah.
the law of nations. This is a law of nations document.
Okay.
Okay, so this is as high as the Constitution, if not higher. And that's how we're going to uphold that's how we're going to bring the Constitution into our lives, in our courts. So, basically, so the Senate's advice and consent is subject to the following declarations. That the United States declares that the provisions 1 through 27 of the covenant are not self-executing. So let's compare the covenant, Articles 1 through 27, which ratify your rights, or say what your rights are. Let's compare the covenant to the Bill of Rights. Are the Bill of Rights self-executing, and does anybody understand what that means?
On the Bill of Rights, I don't know if they are. They should be, I guess.
Do the Bill of Rights take effect if you say you just violated the Fourth Amendment? They are self-executing. They are there. All the people can use them, and you don't have to claim them. That's what they are.
Well, they should be honoring them in their dealings with us anyway because they're self-executing, right?
They are self-executing. But the Senate didn't want these rights to be self-executing. Why is that?
Because they're sneaky.
That's the reason. Because they don't want us to implement them. They don't want us to use them. Because now, in order to execute those rights, we have to make a claim, and we have to bring the right forward to execute it.
And so we have to know about them, and they didn't tell us.
Yeah, you have to know about it. That is the view of the United States. So we have to execute these where the others are self-executing. There are rights. We're entitled to them. We are not entitled to these, but we can claim them. That's the difference. That is the view of the United States that states party to the covenant. Who are the states party to the covenant? The United States. And by the United States proclaiming it to be a treaty or a covenant, all of the 50 states are signed up to. Should, wherever possible, refrain from imposing any restrictions or limitations on the exercise of the rights recognized and protected by the covenant, even when such restrictions and limitations are permissible under the terms of the covenant. For the United States, Article 5, Paragraph 2, which provides that fundamental human rights existing in any state party may not be diminished on the pretext that the covenant recognizes them to a lesser extent. So whichever one is the higher right is the one that's protected here. Has particular relevance to Article 19, Paragraph 3, which would permit certain restrictions on the freedom of expression. So it's saying that the United States will continue to adhere to the requirements and constraints of its Constitution in respect to restrictions and limitations. 4, that the United States declares that the right referred to in Article 47 may be exercised only in accordance with international law. So we have to see what that is. Nothing in the present covenant shall be interpreted as impairing the inherent right of all peoples to enjoy and utilize fully and freely their natural wealth and resources. So what did this say about that? May be exercised only in accordance with international law. So they're asking you now to pay taxes. They're asking you now to take your natural wealth and resources and give it to them. They can spend it better than you. So how does that restriction apply to number 47? That the United States declares that the right referred to in Article 47 may be exercised only in accordance with international law. What does that tell you? You have to do. You don't have the right to utilize freely in your natural wealth and resources unless you do so by implementing international law into your claim. And then they have to abide by it. That's even sneakier, isn't it? Okay. In Article 1 of the Covenant, all peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Do you have to give up your, again, all peoples may for their own ends freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation based upon the principle of mutual benefit and international law. Right now, what do your property taxes go for?
Whatever they tell you you owe.
Where
They
does it
assess
go?
your property for its value and they charge you a certain percentage.
But why? Where does that money go?
They say it goes to running the local government or the state government.
Okay, so it goes into a general fund. For what? Oh, the mutual benefit of this, of whoever they take it for, right? That's a mutual benefit. Why do you pay income taxes? Where does that money go, allegedly? What's it for? The mutual benefit of all the people around you, the ones that are on welfare, the ones that are on Section 8, all those people, we have to pay for them somehow. So we take your money to pay for the mutual benefit. Seems right to me.
Take that in and take it away.
What?
Need to take that away.
Well, it
It's a
just took it
crunch.
away. It just took it away.
Mm.
Because when you bring this in under Article 6, Supremacy Clause, you now have the benefit to keep your wealth and resources and spend them the way you want to. But they can't force you to contribute to a mutual benefit or for the economic, social, and cultural development of somebody else's. Don't you have your own economic, social, and cultural development to worry about? Don't you need to pay for yours first before they got down the streets? That's the beauty of this covenant. This is, I can't tell you how I felt when I ran across this. I mean, I feel like a simpleton. That I haven't looked to international law for the solution. I mean, I've read Vattel's Law of Nations. I'm very familiar with that. I know it's a crime against the Constitution to commit an offense against the Law of Nations, but I just didn't look to the bigger scheme. And here it is. Ratified in 1992. The way out, the way to strengthen the Constitution and hold them to it. Because what happens is when you bring this in, the court has to not be an offense against international law. Any court you go into, when you bring in the covenant together with the Constitution, has to morph itself into a constitutional court. I don't care if it's traffic court. You're going to have to show me in the Constitution and in this document where you can do this to me. It's the way to get the country back. It's the way to stop all this nonsense. It's the way to be strong.
So it's something as simple as, like I guess when people go on the stand to testify and they put their hand on the Bible, that's even.
That's swearing an oath.
So, because the first thing it says that in the Bill of Rights that they don't have a right to put a religion on you, and if that Bible is connected to a religion, then
You can swear on anything.
Who knows what that oath goes to?
So
And the first thing,
We know a guy that when they asked him if he'd swear an oath, he said no. So the judge said, okay, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And he said, once again, that's a sin. No. And they said, court's adjourned.
it took him a while. I have that recorded. I'll bring it next time. I'll play it for
That
you.
makes sense.
His name is Al Thompson, and they put him away for 5 years for not taking taxes from his employers. employees, and he's a lovely man, and he just studied the Bible the whole time he was in there, but he's so good when they try to swear him in. They call him into court to be a witness against somebody else after he was out. And he just wears this prosecutor down to a nub because he can't budge him.
And so he did not support the prosecution of the person, obviously. And
No.
So, okay.
He couldn't swear an oath.
Yeah.
But he didn't want the guy prosecuted, he didn't
Yeah.
want to testify under oath because he said, I never lied,
Yeah.
I tell the truth.
Yeah.
Isn't that good enough for you?
Yeah.
When you swear an oath, God knows what they're hooking you up to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the hitching post, it could have thrown a yoke around your neck, we don't know what the hell that all means, it's not our court, it's a commercial court.
Mm.
You're making some kind of contract with you, you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Everybody should learn, I haven't memorized it either, it's a masterpiece. And it's not 5 minutes long, it's just hilarious. I wrote, to understand how this works. Oh, I've got Marbury versus Madison in here because this guy, somebody sent me this video by I have no idea what the dude's name is. He's got a website called Forever Aware, no, Always Aware, or Eternally Aware.
Totally aware.
Eternally Aware. And, you know, it's just like all these, I don't have time to search everybody's website, especially those with so much stuff on it. And, or I tell myself I don't. But people do send me videos that are interesting, and somebody sent me this one, and I listened to it, and I was just amazed that I had never gone here before. Trying to hold to the Constitution, but it didn't have all the legs on it. So this memorandum of law is what I drew up that can be used with any court case.
Is it a file that can be found by doing a Google search?
No, I wrote it. I don't care about the license agreement. Help me, anybody that can. How can this be possible?
Oh, I don't think that he has Microsoft Word. Or you're using your own computer, right?
No, I'm using Craze.
Oh. Yeah, Microsoft Word, you have to have your contract.
Well, I have one of these, but Craze never used this computer. So I guess he didn't need Word on it. He took it with him to Mexico to write. I can see how much writing he did. He doesn't even have a program. Okay. This is a memorandum of law. What a memorandum of law is, how I would use this is, if I was in a court, like let's say they nailed me for having no driver license. So I put in this document into the Austin City Court, the court of high elevation. Why do we even have to go to these things? I don't know, except they need the revenue. So, and we do it. So I would put a brief in that would say, I can't find that you have any constitutional oaths, and that I don't believe this court has any validity over me, and I'm noticing the court that I'm invoking the Supremacy Clause, Article 6 of the Constitution, and if the court can't show me that it sits as a constitutional court, then I want them to discharge this charge immediately. So that's basically what the brief would say. But long ago, when I first started being engaged in this court system, we always used to do a brief and we support it with a memorandum of law. And I rarely see that. Actually, I got served one of those about a month ago, and I thought, wow, this guy remembers what the law used to be. So it was always supported by a memorandum of law, and I'm of the belief that the more simple things are, the more effective they are. So my stuff is always simple. So this isn't a finalized or anything, but it's a memorandum of law, which is an example of how to use the Supremacy Clause to bring in international law.
So Dessie, can you,
make it bigger?
well that too, but I was gonna say, can you send us all these documents that you're showing us here?
If you'll send me your emails, guys,
Okay.
I'll be more than happy to.
Would you like me to post them on our Facebook page?
Sure. And I've got cards. What's your name?
Susie.
Susie?
McNeil.
Do I know you?
I don't think so.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm glad you came.
Thank
I'll
you.
be glad too. I have a card.
Okay.
I am a woman who is endowed with natural rights, free and independent from any of man's laws. I am now standing under those natural rights. Yeah, that's where this, everybody's saying, oh, you have to do this for standing or status or whatever. I just declared my standing. My rights are unalienable. These natural rights or laws of nature can neither be transferred nor surrendered. These rights are absolute rights and belong to all men and women. One of those rights is personal liberty. These rights are better known as fundamental rights and freedoms. These natural rights and freedoms are not found in man-made laws, rules, regulations, or ordinances. In fact, those legislatively enacted laws, rules, regulations, and ordinances are counter to natural laws. Because remember, if you get a traffic ticket and you try to validate it, look in the Constitution and see if you can find any place for that. Is it constitutional? I claim protection of my rights under the Declaration of Independence. This is where I make my claim. The Constitution of the United States of America, September 17th, 1787, and it's 9, isn't it? What? No, it's 7. The Bill of Rights, the Texas Constitution, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The court should be familiar with 4 of the preceding documents. As to the latter, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a United Nations Human Rights Treaty, was signed by the United States on May 10, 1977 and ratified on August 6, 1992. Took them a while, didn't it? The Senate modified the treaty on April 2, 1992. 138 Congressional Record, blah, blah. One of the declarations to the treaty was that Articles 1 through 27 of the Covenant are not self-executing. Self-executing. Anything, example, a document or legislation which is effective immediately without the need of intervening court action and ancillary legislation or other type of implementing action. From Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. That's the definition. The Constitution, in clear and unmistakable terms, settles only 3 matters with respect to treaties. And then the footnote tells what international treaties are. It provides that self-executing treaties, together with the Constitution and federal laws, constitute the supreme law of the land. And that's Article 6, Section 2. No E on the article down here. And it withholds from the several states of the United States authority to enter into any treaty. As you can see, I footnoted this stuff, so I don't have to clutter up the thing and go to footnotes and read the reason why. On a whole range of concerns affecting the subject of treaties, including amendment or modification, extension, suspension, and termination, the Constitution is silent. More than 200 years of practice in judicial decision have filled some of the mentioned and other gaps. But a number of treaty-related issues persist without definitive resolution. It is under that provision that I am making the following claims, and that's found at a court case. It is under that provision that I'm making the following claims and exercising the rights enumerated in the covenant and informing the federal, state, local, municipal government of its obligation to implement, execute, and enforce those rights. Now you've just held them liable to the Constitution because it is their obligation, because I executed that claim. I am invoking international covenant through use of Article 6, Clause 2, the Supremacy Clause, of the Constitution of the United States of America. I'll fix that. September 17, 1787, to wit. All peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. I'm just quoting from the International Covenant now because I'm claiming those rights. I've just brought them in under the Supremacy Clause, and now they're in this court. And the court has what? An obligation to uphold them now. So these are just articles out of the covenant. You'll see it in the covenant. Nothing in this present covenant may be interpreted as implying for any state group or person or any right to engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms recognized herein, or at the limitation to a greater extent than is provided for in the present covenant. So by charging me, or trying to force me to pay property tax, or force me to pay income taxes or go to jail, are they destroying my constitutional rights at that point? Yes, they are.
Yes.
My rights and freedoms. There shall be no restriction upon or derogation from any of the fundamental rights recognized or existing in any state party to the present covenant pursuant to law, conventions, regulations, or customs. And again, this is all language out of the covenant. And then Article 47, we already saw that earlier. By signing this covenant, the United States understood that this covenant shall be implemented by the federal government to the extent that it exercises judicial and legislative jurisdiction over the matters covered therein, and otherwise by the state and local governments to the extent that the state and local governments exercise jurisdiction over such, I was trying to get rid of that thing, over such, help me,
Matters.
matters. The federal government shall take appropriate measures and ensure that the state and local governments implement appropriate measures for the fulfillment of the covenant. I am not bound nor obligated to pay any form of taxes for the mutual benefit of others.
So Dessie, that's at Article 47, and it's 1 through 27 that are not self-executing, so why is that not self-executing?
It's a restriction on it.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
I have the right to freely dispose of my natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligation arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principle of mutual benefit and international law. By the forceful taking of my homestead property, this is for a guy who had his property, they took his property for property taxes. By the forceful taking of my homestead property, the defendants in the enterprise are the agencies and men who constitute the RICO action. The RICO action is always brought against an enterprise who have committed a crime. By the forceful taking of my homestead property, the defendants in the enterprise have forcefully contributed my natural wealth or resources to a society based upon a principle of mutual benefit. There is nothing in the Constitution of the United States of America, the Texas Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence that allows any party to forcefully take my wealth and resources for the common good. I have claimed that an enterprise forcefully took my homestead property, that it did so under the principle of mutual benefit, that it, by force of arms, disposed of my natural wealth and resources, my unalienable property and rights for its own purposes. I have claimed that an enterprise, in addition to forcefully disposing of my property against my will and in violation of the Constitution, continued to harm me by cruelly and unusually punishing me. That brings in the Eighth Amendment. It punished me by taking all my property, which was far over and above the taxation it determined I must render unto it. In doing so, the enterprise committed violations of local laws, the Texas Constitution, the Constitution of the United States of America, the Fourth and Eighth Amendments, and the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Is that a violation of the law of nations, an offense against the law of nations that we have here? Yeah, I would say so. This court is obligated not only by domestic laws, but by international covenants to give me the remedy I seek. The court is obligated to give me the remedy I seek because I have claimed my rights. I would remind the court that only 4 crimes are listed as punishable by the Constitution of the United States of America. One of those 4 is an offense against the law of nations. I have invoked a law of nations as adopted by the United States. That's a big claim, okay? The enterprise has violated not only all the rights bestowed on me, by the preceding documents, it has committed an offense against the law of nations. The federal government, through judicial process in this court, is obligated to right the wrong by granting me the remedy I seek. I hereby claim that remedy. That's how the Constitution and the law of nations is. That's it. That's my presentation for today. Any questions?
So what you're basically saying here almost is that the law of nations is, you might say, kind of like a trump card that can be used to make them abide by the Constitution and Bill of Rights?
Exactly. The law of nations, because it's mentioned in the Constitution, and it's an offense if you go against the dictates of the law of nations, and this covenant is one of the law of nations. If they go counterintuitive to the Constitution, they have committed an offense. It's a punishable
To the
crime.
law of nations.
And
And it's there basically to promote social order amongst all the nations and tribes, right?
I didn't catch that.
The law of nations is there to promote, you might say, cooperation between the nations and tribes. And
That would be
and to
another
assure basic human rights,
Sure.
you know, according to the fact that, it's kind of interesting, it took 15 years for it to be ratified, but eventually it was ratified by the Congress.
I think they didn't want to pass it. What do you think?
They were dragging their feet like most sessions, you know, oh, put it off until,
We can't give the rights to the
After
people.
Christmas.
Oh,
Okay.
I know.
put it off till after Easter.
They did it at the end
Put it
of
off until
Bush.
Thanksgiving. No, we'll get to it next year.
They did it at the end of Bush. Was Bush pushing them to do that, or does
I
anybody?
have no idea.
Well, it's
how
interesting to
ratified.
me
93 is when
What?
it originated.
that it coincides, the ratification of it coincides with the adoption of Agenda 21.
But that's okay.
So I guess if they said we're gonna sign on to Agenda 21, we have to give the people in the know this out.
I guess so. That would be a good, yeah, that's a good answer.
As long as we keep them asleep, we can get away with whatever we
Yeah.
want.
As long as we don't give them the entitlement to those rights. They have to know about them and they have to claim them in court.
Right? Yeah. That is a pattern that they do use.
So you're saying that actually a key to actually maintain and have your basic human rights preserved is actually understanding international law and the treaties that be.
That's what I'm saying. Because it gives it power, it gives it teeth, and it obligates the court to rule in your favor. The court can't rule anything but constitutionally. Because if the court ruled against this, I'm going straight to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court can have direct appeals on a constitutional issue. I don't have to wait in line for granting certiorari, at least I believe this. Because I just found this in Texas. I've gone straight to the Supreme Court in Texas now for a violation of a constitutional issue, for an unconstitutional statute. And so since it involves a constitutional statute, I don't have to play in the Court of Appeals. I can go straight to the Texas Supreme Court when it's a matter of constitutional violation or an unconstitutional issue. And I believe that the same thing would be true for the big Supreme Court. I would think that it has to take a direct appeal on a constitutional issue.
So, follow up on what she was doing, which kind of ties in. How do you do something about it? What did the storage unit do, Mom?
Storage unit?
Yeah, budget storage. They sent me a letter. What did they do? They sent a claim.
Yeah, they sent a claim.
So, you send a claim, and you claim, hey, I don't believe you have your oaths. Please provide them. If you don't provide them, here's the caveat of the consequences. If you do provide them, thanks a lot. Have a great day.
And what's the caveat?
Caveat with whatever you want it to be.
What do you suggest?
Resignation from an office they never
Get out of it! I'll bring my box down
officially
tomorrow.
took their oath would be really nice, or just leaving the office would be good since they didn't take the oath to actually resign. So to get out.
To get out
To vacate
peacefully
the
without
seat you
being.
are legally occupying?
Correct.
But the problem is that each and every one of them is in the same situation.
Well,
Yes, they
so
are.
One at a time.
here's the thing.
But I mean, we have done some of this stuff before, and it didn't fly very far.
Yeah, because it never got pursued. There was
Okay.
only one person that kept going after these guys on bonds and oaths.
And
And it
That
got
was-
to the point where Gerald Doherty wrote an email that said, because you asked about my oath, I'm not going to have an appointment with you. He put disenfranchisement in writing.
So, who would we take with us to remove them from their seat if they don't provide the oath?
You take 10 people in a cardboard box and tell them to get out of the
Okay.
office.
You get enough folks to put in an affidavit that the sheriff
So
will
this is,
accept.
this would be in line with like what we were doing.
Well,
Okay.
now,
With a
but
couple
you
of
did, when you were disenfranchised, go through that logic too, because when he disenfranchises you, what,
That absolves you of their belief system.
right. So that's the other side of it. They just threw us out.
Right, and they threw the baby out with the bathwater. And see, they don't understand that because of the belief system and the psychology of this belief system. The way the indoctrination works in this country is that you believe that the person that's been elected is going to do the right thing. And most of the folks, 70%, believe that and will continue to believe it even after it's proven a gazillion dozen different times that they don't have your interests at heart. Look at Facebook. I mean, if Facebook was your girlfriend, how would you be feeling right now? Because Facebook's turned over private information over 20 times and keeps saying, well, gee, I'm sorry.
Y'all never do it again.
Right.
I never cheat again.
Everybody stays on that stuff. But I mean, it's this thing, it's this inherent indoctrination that we have in this country that we think that the performance will somehow balance out down in the future. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance. How many folks in here would stand up and take the Pledge of Allegiance?
Not I.
Well, in most rooms you go into, I mean, look at the crap they're having over the national anthem. Most of these people will hop up and do the Pledge of Allegiance at the drop of a hat. So where's the Pledge of Allegiance come from? Who invented that?
Betsy Ross?
No, wasn't it, what about the 30s, wasn't it?
No, it was invented in 1890s, and it was invented by a guy to promote National Socialism and to sell flags because he worked for a flag company. So he invented an oath to a flag, and
And give an oath to a piece of cloth.
Everybody had to have a flag.
And guess how the salute goes? Now we do the I pledge allegiance like this, right? Now the original is like this. I pledge allegiance to my flag. That wasn't looking so good in 1942, so we had to change it. So we changed it.
Was that kind of based on the German stuff? Like, was it
No, it's
Bismarck?
that's
wasn't it?
based on pure ass Roman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's straight up Roman.
Yeah.
So can we establish a quorum of 10 and just start going down and picking these people off?
We don't need to, okay.
I'll bring the boxes.
The best way to do it is for them to receive individual certified letters.
Right.
I believe that we should say, either produce, and these are the oaths that you have to have before you assume the duties of your office. Would you please send them to me so I can verify that you have them? In case you don't send them or you don't have them, I want to inform you that I'm going to file a claim against you with the risk management in the amount of.
Okay, who's
$500.
risk management? You
There's
said
a risk
five.
management department.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is
Right
their
now.
obligation?
Or I'm going to
So-
file a claim against you personally because you're
Okay. Well,
masquerading.
we've already done that. I mean, we
I
already
know,
have
but
the-
here's the
yeah.
deal, but you tell them that you can commit them to involuntary bankruptcy, you know you can do that.
Yeah.
You can claim $500,000 personally from them, and when they don't pay you, you can file involuntary bankruptcy on them.
You
Do that to about 5 of them, and see what
You
happens.
negotiate with them by putting in a caveat of what you want, and then after you finish telling them what you want, you also say, oh yeah, by the way, what is the thing that they're missing?
Oath and bond.
No, it's the other thing. Oh yeah, by the way, also provide the 8 pages that were from the open records request that are in David Escamilla versus David Paxton. I don't think you guys have been lawfully elected. That's called negotiating.
So can we get 10 of us and do this? And then what if we just ask for them to walk away from their
That's why
illegally
you take
occupied
the box.
Yeah, but so can
Right,
we,
so
or how
yeah.
many of us are here today? Can we do this? Are there 10 of us? I mean,
Well,
we could-
I like to be a little bit more strategic, because we don't want to get rid of everybody, we just want to hold them accountable.
do.
and
no, we want to
yeah,
get, we want to get rid of every single one of them that is illegally
Why?
pretending to
Right,
serve.
yeah.
That's all there is though.
Okay.
Right, every single
That's all
one of
there
them is
is.
illegally,
That
that's
has not
not one
taken
of
the
them.
initiative.
That's
Okay,
all there
great,
is.
that's,
Yeah.
great. Bring up Belgium,
Okay,
bring up Belgium.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Everybody goes on about we don't want to get rid of government. We need to have some government in place, right? Okay.
Why? Or not.
Belgium went
I don't,
Belgium went 5 years without having a government. They did fine.
yeah,
When I was in Italy in April, the Italians hadn't made it. They were going for elections, but they didn't have a government at the time. This guide is explaining to this group of Americans the problem they're having in Italy, and the problem they were having in Italy is they've got too many senators, and all these senators get a salary, and all these senators get pensions, and they wanted to find out how many senators there were, because they've only got so many provinces, and they've got thousands of senators. So they're trying to figure out where all these senators came from and who exactly they belong to. So they go to the Department of Treasury, the Department of Finance over there, and they say to the Ministry of Finance, hey, we need the payment records for all these senators here. And the Department of Finance says, well, that's great, but we don't pay them. They get paid by this thing over here somewhere completely different, and everybody went, well, where's that money coming from? And now we got another problem. And the American guy says to the Italian guy, all nice and pompous, well, you know, we have 100 senators in America, and we have 400 and whatever congressmen, and, you know, then we have the three branches of government. And I said to him, I'll tell you what, I'll bet you, buddy, I'll bet you lunch at any restaurant you choose in Rome that you can't tell me how many government servicing agencies there are within 1,500. And if you're within 1,500 government servicing agencies, I'll buy you lunch anywhere in Rome.
What are you looking for?
To which he said,
What are you looking for, sir?
I'm looking for the nursery here.
It's the red building over there.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
No problem.
to which he wouldn't take the bet. So the Italians are worried about 100 senators or so that they can't figure out where these guys came from. And we have, I don't know how many government servicing agencies. And government servicing agencies are something very, very interesting indeed, because they do contracts for the government.
Contracts.
Right. And they get .gov emails. And when you get a .gov website, then you get this thing called contracts. And when you get the contracts, then you get to do this, what is it? It's a G-invoicing. When you do G-invoicing, then you get everything you want paid for.
That's when you need to do a tax return.
Well, you need to.
Well, but yeah,
400 million seems to be the problem number
So
with
then let's
those
not
things.
just go for the ones with the
Everybody that
contracts.
goes over 400 million seems to bring attention to themselves. But if you keep under 400 million, it looks like you can run those
Right,
things
but
all day long.
technically, if you're receiving money from the government, then that's when you would be applicable. Tax
Technically,
returns would generally
there's
be
no such
applicable.
thing as money. Okay?
No, tell them what a G-invoice is.
Okay, a G-invoice is where it's a currency system, but it's electronic. So anything the government wants, you go into the government contracting list and you say to yourself, say I've got a .gov listing. I go in and I go through the contracts and I say, okay, my company can perform this service, I'll do this contract. You hit the button, the money pops up, you say, okay, I'll take this money, now I'm going to go and I'm going to hit this button over here, and now I'm going to perform this service for the government, and they're going to send me a bank warrant. And they send a bank warrant to your bank account, or your Treasury Direct account, whichever
Right.
one you have.
You remember the lady in Puerto Rico that she contracted to make X number of lunches or whatever a day to feed the, I think it was Puerto Rico, it might have been Florida. But she got $10 million and she's provided 100 sandwiches.
Wow, wait, hold on, I'm in the wrong
Be in that
business.
You know, Jeremiah's been doing that, actually doing relief for the hurricanes and they do it all free. And the Department of Homeland Security would throw them out of places saying that they were interfering with the election by providing free meals to people who's, like a trailer park whose all the houses were destroyed. Interesting.
You said you had a business card? I have to
Anyway.
go. I've got somewhere.
But
We send them a claim,
Yeah.
and we do follow up.
do you have, could you all mail out an example of a claim to everybody? Email?
But that's the way you do it. You file a claim because claims scare the shit out of you.
And then you have to do the little three notifications all together, right?
I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, just one?
Look, man. Okay, here's the thing. Did they obey the rules? Okay, here's the baby with the bathwater again. They threw out the baby with the bathwater. We throw out the baby with the bathwater. It's like I said to my mom. Okay, in chapter 10, paragraph 8, it's waiver of sovereign immunities. Now, what makes you think the procedures don't get thrown out with the immunities?
Well, that's true.
They do. Everything gets tossed. The entire belief system goes out the window. That religion is no longer part of your belief system. So, if the judge is in front of you and you start saying you're a priest, you're not a judge because you got legislature officers, You go through the deity, prophet who interprets, officers of the religion who enforce, legislature, judges who interpret, officers of the court who enforce.
Is that related to Freemasonry,
It's
Craig?
a religion. It's related to control populations.
But have you ever checked to see if it's all written up? Because they give all these
Yeah,
rules to
there's
judges.
a thing called the Old Testament and then the New Testament. Who the hell do you think's been running this planet? Okay, now you go to the Freemasonry stuff. Who are the Freemasons? Ptolemy. Okay, now Ptolemy had the Old Testament written. Now who's Ptolemy? Ptolemy is your Lord Almighty. Okay, now people aren't putting that together yet because we're not there yet. But you got Ptolemy. Now why can't you speak the Lord's name? Because the name's Ptolemy. They're all named Ptolemy. That's why you can't speak the name.
Show me a picture.
Oh. Anyway, Ptolemy went by the name Serapis Christos.
Christos.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
300
No, Ptolemy was.
300 years
Christ.
before Jesus.
So, wasn't Ptolemy the general for Alexander the Great or whatever?
One of them, and then he became Pharaoh.
Right.
Right.
And then the Ptolemies.
Right. And that he's the guy that had the Old Testament.
And so he was like.
And said in the book, you cannot speak my name except to call me Lord. And then they're all named Ptolemy.
Right.
Okay, it's a control system.
And Cleopatra goes down to Cleopatra, who married Julius Caesar.
Right.
And made babies.
What was the difference between her and all the other Ptolemaic line?
She was the last of it.
She was the first one to ever be able to speak Egyptian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they all spoke Greek. All right. Now, why was the New Testament written in Greek?
Because that was the language of the
Because,
Romans.
also because she was the great grandmother
No.
of Jesus.
No. Okay. Old Testament written in ancient Greek because it's written by the Greeks. Now, the New Testament is written by the Romans, but it's in Greek because if you were of Roman nobility, you spoke Greek amongst your equals and Latin to the slaves and in public. You had your private and your public. And so you got to remember there's a division of the mind between private and public. And the division of the mind goes especially deep in these animals called judges. And what we think will not work with the judge works extremely well with the judge. Now, you don't want to upset a judge. Why? Because then you'll get to see what a judge really looks like. And then everybody will not obey. Because once you see what a judge really looks like, what venile little pathetic morons they are,
So what you're saying is you really do want to upset a judge?
you go straight at them.
Okay.
Yeah, usually it
And you
does.
tear them up. And here's
And you
my
don't
favorite.
call him your honor, you just call him judge.
Here's
Or
what,
Bob or John.
Okay.
as I in our last meeting, as I said, I bought a wizard hat this last Halloween thing. So next time I go to court, I'm taking the wizard hat in and I'm gonna say, this will complete your ensemble. But no, you show them no respect.
Yeah.
First off, they haven't taken the oath,
Yeah.
so they're not due the respect of office. They're due complete and total contempt because they haven't taken the oaths and bonds. See, the mentality in this country is to still mollycoddle these damn judges.
Yeah.
Well, is the next thing gonna be on contempt, because we'll kinda need to know how to deal
Well,
with
that
that,
will
eh?
be part of the caveat, won't it? That if they've taken the oath and then they've performed any sort of judicial
That's
stuff, then they are holding the court in contempt by not having the oaths. So you use the psychology of the religion against it. And
Haven't
it
they
can't
gone against the
stand.
sanctity of the court?
Well, they've said that these are our rules, yet they're not
Following.
following their own
They will
rules.
follow the
They
first
will
rule.
They will follow the rules of it depending on how you present it.
Well, I know, but the fact that the oaths are their rules and they so far are not following them.
Correct.
So, right? So,
Right, so
They have no authority without the else.
it's up to us to point that out to them.
Yeah,
Because as long as they get away with it, human nature is they're gonna get away with it.
right.
And if it's just one or two people complaining, they're gonna say, yeah, it's just one or two
Yeah.
people. And when it gets to be anything over 10, they get worried. And nothing is better than them being worried.
And they do get worried, you can see it in their
Well,
faces
the
when
one
you
thing
go
that's
down
better
there in
than
group.
them being worried is if we show up with 10 of us in a cardboard box for them to put their
Certified.
things in and walk them out of the office and leave the seat vacant for someone honorable to fill it with an oath and a bond.
We send in a claim and then show up on a Tuesday morning at 9.
Okay, well, let's make a plan.
Tuesday at 9 for what
For
reason?
Commissioners
Oh, the commissioner's court.
court, public interaction.
Yeah, and that's where we show up with our
Well,
boxes.
And let them
Not
interact. with
exactly
them.
they got them either.
Right, but that's
Oh,
why
they
we say,
don't. Some of
okay,
they don't even have the Article 16.
But she's
All right.
LBJ's daughter.
who's the key person in
You
this?
know who LBJ
Oh,
is.
Jumbo.
Okay,
The
go
key
ahead.
person in this county?
Okay, who is the #1 person to go after in this county?
Yeah, let's-
County judge.
Sarah Eckert.
Yeah.
The county judge?
is
Yeah.
she the one? No, it was Dana Debbie Watt that
No,
said
no,
this.
That's
no.
the clerk.
She's the county
I
clerk.
know, but
She needs
isn't
to get
she
it
the
too.
one who called for the Attorney General and her, the only ones to see this? Or was that the county clerk that called for that? I mean, the county judge that called for that, Eckert. The document that you're asking to have
That would
reviewed.
be Judge Jan Seifert, who
Okay.
does not have oaths and bonds on file.
So why don't we go after her first so that we can get her to reveal
Because
this thing?
Sarah Eckert is well aware of the problem.
Okay,
Sarah Eckert is part of the problem.
and she's the highest judge in Travis County.
Correct.
Okay.
She is the purse
And we can
strings.
demand for her to show us this document that she is illegally sealed from us.
That would be part of the caveat.
Okay,
But the first is to show all of her proper oaths and bonds, or we do such and such. We have a caveat.
now, my question about that then is, if she's not sworn in and bonded, is she able to get the document that she didn't have the authority to have sealed in the first
How do you
place?
think these things got sealed?
Yeah.
Well-
They got passed around to all these people and they all read them. They're all
Okay.
well aware of them.
Okay,
Okay, we're gonna go under the assumption that they know everything. We're not gonna
Okay.
do what you're doing now. It's called a
Okay.
non-argument. It's
no,
what
I'm
you
just
really did.
asking, I know that she
I know what you're
knows. I know that she knows, but if we're saying you have to get up and leave because you're not eligible to be here, then how can she get the document to produce for us?
She can't.
Because here's how it works, okay? David Escamilla works for Sarah Eckert. He's the guy that
Okay,
filed the paperwork. Therefore, it's the
Gotcha.
same as Sarah Eckert filing the paperwork.
gotcha.
All right? Now, we get everybody else out of the picture. We
Okay.
focus like a laser beam on Sarah Eckert
Gotcha.
because she is the purse strings for Travis County.
Okay,
All roads lead to Sarah Eckert
Okay.
in Travis County.
well, I say that we maybe next week we all have a letter that we get ready and we send our letters out, and then whatever day you tell us we need to, we show up with our box at Sarah Eckert's.
And Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Exposure.
Well, and this is televised too,
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
they'll be like, shut it
They're
down.
not- No. After the last time we went in and asked for bonds, they doesn't
Absolutely. I thought they were searching for
No, but
transparency.
Facebook Live can go out faster than they can take it down.
Well, Facebook isn't gonna,
It'll
No,
get
what
to-
she's saying is
I mean,
Facebook Live is going out live, and by the time they get a chance to delete it, people have already seen it because it went out live.
right, but I don't know if I do it Facebook Live. There's a lot of other
Anything.
ways of doing it live
Any
too.
live,
Any live, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
we know Facebook is crooked, but we're gonna utilize.
They'll
Yeah.
take it down after a
We
while.
know
Well, they will
government's
take it
crooked,
down,
we
but
need to
people
use
will
to
see it
bring them
before it
down.
comes down.
And well, then the other thing is but you can do it live a lot of other ways.
You can do it live and still record it
That's
for your own
true.
personal records.
They'll,
and
what do they do
any
if you bring your own
media.
cameras in there?
They ask you to not film, and then you can always ask them the question that stops them dead in their tracks.
Under what authority?
No,
The question.
are you asking me to destroy evidence?
Oh,
See, a whole different deal.
yeah, yeah.
Are you asking me to commit a crime?
That's exactly what I said when I was in Wise County. I said,
Yeah.
you have destroyed my exculpatory evidence of an ongoing trial.
Yeah.
And then it got dismissed within about 3 to 5 minutes later. It was all done.
What a shock. And that was because you kept your mouth quiet, you sat over there, and you were a good little boy, right?
No.
Right. So,
And
I got
so-
pretty mad with him, actually. I got pretty upset.
and that really makes them eager to get you out of there. They
We
don't
were
like
out.
people being upset. They have to keep the faith. Now, here's the thing I love about the judges anymore. My question to them is, do you have a bar card? Are you trained to deceive? Where do we go from here?
People with bar cards are trained to deceive.
I
Of
believe
course,
they
you're
are.
a liar.
I thought it was a lawyer. Oh, liar, yeah.
And what's a card? What's the difference between a card and a license?
One's a membership, one's an agency.
One's an occupation deal and one's a club membership. Guess which one's which?
Marty has
Well, the cards of
licenses.
membership.
Uh-huh.
So they just belong to Sam's Club?
They belong to a religion. You know they belong to a religion because their priests wear robes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now, like I say, anytime you want to know anything about government and beliefs, you need to go read the Italian.
About,
Scalia will tell you where everything is.
it's a religion that believes in constraint and control. That's what the black
Fear.
robes represent.
Fear.
And
As
fear.
Scalia said, we make the decision and everyone obeys as it should be. Faith, belief.
How did we get
There's
the
no-
pyramid? The
there's-
pyramid got flipped upside
There's
down
no
somehow.
gun behind the Supreme Court.
Because we had people that thought they were electing representatives and they didn't watch their back. And they became masters instead of representatives.
Okay, we have a schizophrenia in this country because the first guy that got this thing going, Jimmy Madison, wrote great stuff about freedom, and as soon as he got any power, he wanted all those things taken away. Because he saw what power does. You know, with power, man, you got control.
And he was real short, too.
Well, apparently he was fat, too.
Was he?
Yeah,
I knew he was real short.
he was real short and real fat and loved to wear
He
purple.
had a little man syndrome.
How did he get Dolly? Wasn't she kind of good?
Well, I mean, everybody was younger at some point. But he had a guy thrown in jail for slander. Every morning when they'd go strolling through the park, the guy would come by and make some comment to him like, you know, hello, your serene highness, and stuff like that. And then one day he went by and said, good morning, your rotundedness. And that was a slander lawsuit.
Did he
Even though he
win?
was rotund, huh?
Because he disparaged him physically.
No, but did Madison win?
Oh, no. But that doesn't matter. The guy got thrown in jail. This was a different day and age.
Boy, for that?
Yeah.
I thought, wouldn't that be
He
a civil
slandered
thing?
somebody, buddy. That was an offense back then. Okay, back then when those guys wrote the Constitution and the Declaration, they meant what the hell they said. They weren't a bunch of pansies running around saying, you know what, I'm going to internalize my sexuality today and try to figure out what I'm going to be next week. You know, no. They were saying, this is what we want to govern ourselves this way. Jefferson, 2 years before the Continental Convention, Congressional Convention,
Continental Congress.
that's it. He's writing about the Virginia legislature. He's writing to King George and said, hey, you little pissant, you need to pay as much attention to the Virginia legislature as you are to Parliament. And that you're not, you're going to rue the day that you don't pay attention to us. You know what King George said? Nothing.
Send me your taxes.
Didn't
Yeah.
care. Because there wasn't enough complaining going on. The mantra of the tyrant is, I must have been okay because nobody complained.